Today's episode, in a sense, is really a continuation of my last episode. And if you haven't listened to that, I would encourage you to go listen to it. Gives you an overview as to why I've been silent for the last 6 months. And a big factor of it is an addiction, specifically to something called Kratom or Kratom, depending on who you talk to. And today's guest also struggled with it. And I thought it would be really good to bring him on just to talk about specifically Kratom, what it does, how it affects you, really get a little bit more into the weeds of the impact of it on people's physical bodies and then also the emotional impact of it. And really coming from someone who has worked through that addiction and found a life, a thriving life on the other side of that. I think it's really good to hear from people that don't sugarcoat the challenge of it and are also able to give people hope. I know that was a big factor for me when I was struggling with my addiction, was just a sense of hopelessness, of feeling powerless and hopeless because at the time I didn't look up and see or hear from other people that had overcome this. And so I really felt alone. And I want to use my platform to extend that hand that maybe someone needs to hold on to begin that process of coming out of the gutter that they may find themselves in, and to really understand that even, and no matter how dark it is, and this can go beyond even just addiction, is that it does not have to be your new normal, that you can choose to move through the dark place that you're at, the powerless place that you may feel like you're at, the hopeless place you may feel like you're at, and really build a life that you ultimately desire and that you deserve. That does not mean it's easy, and more than likely it'll be harder than you anticipate it in some ways and more life-giving than you anticipate it in others. And I know that that's what I've found. And today's guest is a man that played a role in me finding more than I thought I would find in my journey of coming out of a Kratom addiction. And that is a true friend. And so without further ado, let's get into the conversation of overcoming addiction. We're going to be talking about Kratom specifically, but really the principles that you get from this conversation can be applied to any area of your life that you find addiction. And I hope that you're able to find a small piece of motivation and encouragement that helps you move out of where you may find yourself if you're one of those people, like I was, that got the addictive hooks latched into them and found themselves feeling powerless. Men, we are not simple, chest-thumping, rock-smashing, fire-starting barbarians. We have depth. We intensely feel. We are scared, yet brave. We love to have fun. We're imperfect and make mistakes. We're compassionate and loving. We are multifaceted. Let's explore the reality of masculinity together. There are times in my life that I get to come across individuals that are more than just a friend. And today's guest is evolving into that. And the reason for that is because I met him, quite frankly, at a really low point where we're going to dive into and talk about. But I attended a somatic workshop, super intensive, we'll call it, or as my wife's calling it, a somatic boot camp. And he was in the room. And that began the relationship, which over the last, what's it been, 7-8 months, something like that, has evolved into just a true appreciation for who he is and what he carries, and his willingness to be present in his life, as well as dive into topics that a lot of men are not willing to dive into, which if you've listened to any of my episodes, you know that's what I'm all about. So without further ado, JeVon, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time between. We're actually in between the bridge and extreme right now to carve out some time to have some honest conversations.
Yes, brother. Thank you.
And on that note, I want to dive right in. I don't want to waste any time. And I want to talk about the topic of Kratom. You know, it's become pretty popular in the last, let's say, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And I am someone who I got hooked on it and didn't even realize the depth of it and the shame that I had with it. But I know that that's something that you've been open about discussing. And I want to have a conversation around that. And
Sure.
first and foremost, just to hear your story and your journey of why did you turn to that? How did you turn to that? And what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, sure. I may not have the date dialed in, but it was somewhere between 2014 and 2016,
Okay.
somewhere in that window. I remember sharing with a friend that I was dealing with back pain, and he
Yep.
had asked if I'd ever tried Kratom because he had had some pain that he was dealing with, and he was using Kratom as a way to alleviate the pain he was dealing with, and I'd never heard of it,
Yeah.
and I was like, no, I never even heard of it. And he explained a little bit about it. Um, I do remember in the way that he framed it, it had sounded so. It sounded. I had no reservations about trying it.
Yeah.
I'll just put it that way. I'm someone that's very intentional about what I put in my body, or I try to
Okay.
be.
Yeah.
And the way he framed it, nothing. There was no red flag. There was no alarms that went off. It was like, whoa, this may not be something. Um, and so he brought a sample in for me. He brought like just I think it was like he gave it to me in like pill form, capsules.
Okay.
And I remember the first evening that I took it, I was like, oh, this feels like a Vicodin. It had very similar
Yeah.
feeling of a Vicodin. And as I like started to research what it actually was, I realized that there's some commonalities with it, right? Being from the opiate family,
Yep.
um, and it was effective. I was like, oh wow, this is really effective. And I started taking it, and it wasn't daily. It was maybe a couple times a day. And I was like, oh, why do I have to do it a couple times a day? Why not do this daily? And then it became less about like the pain management for my back.
Yeah.
It became more about like really wanting that feeling that I was getting, which was like this euphoric. I was feeling sedated. Um, all was well.
Yeah.
It's just offered really this buffer to any kind of like any any static that may have been happening in my world. And so this is over the course of like a year where it became like a daily thing that I was doing.
Okay.
Um, at this particular point, it became more recreational. It was like, man, I'm going to do this for this feeling that I'm desiring. And that inevitably led into me doing it throughout the day, more amounts of it, and then eventually just really getting into a cycle where I was really dependent on it and addicted to it, and that lasted for 5 6 years. Um,
Wow. Okay.
and at the end there, I would say like the last 2 years is where I just felt I was really aware of how reckless and um, unintentional and how unhealthy my use had become.
Yeah.
I was hiding it. Uh, I was making sure that I had, if we were like leaving to go out, it's like, man, I have to have a certain amount with me
Yep.
uh, to to make sure that I don't enter any space where I don't have it and want it. And and it just energetically, it just felt like I was abusing the substance. It didn't feel like it was like life giving. Um, And so I was in that space for about 2 3 years where I was like, man, I have to get out. I get to get out of this for myself to, bring myself back to a healthier space. And I couldn't do it. I just did not
Yeah.
have the means or support, or quite frankly, the desire, the real true internal desire to get myself out of that space.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's
How
my
did you
journey. Yeah.
how did you get
Uh,
out of it?
the first thing that I did was promise myself that I would not um, not experience another my son's birthday. I would not experience his next birthday having still have been using Kratom. So
Okay.
I made that promise to myself, and I made it to him. Maybe didn't vocalize it to him directly. So that was enough to gain me leverage and kind of harnessed it, or just deepened my why. And then I got support. I got support online. There's two Facebook groups that I joined.
Okay.
And I just started to learn about it and learn about what other people were experiencing and what they'd use to help, uh, break their cycle of use. And then ultimately, I had set up a tapering schedule for myself that I was able to keep and maintain. And May 1st, 2 years ago, was my last use. I would say the end of June was my last use. May 1st was like the day I was like, hey, I'm doing this, moving forward without this substance anymore.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
tough. It was tough, man.
Yeah.
That was a brutal, brutal process with the withdrawal.
Yep.
I would say it took 18 months for me to like feel recalibrated to a point where I was like, okay, I can function here without having mood swings, without I was dealing with these bouts of anxiety uh, that were creeping in. And there were other little physical ailments that I would say started to fade away uh, from being pretty persistent
Yeah.
at about 18 months. It's like a long time, man.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. Like I said, it's something that I've struggled with too. And my withdrawals, I don't think enough people talk about the withdrawal side of it because I I really aggressively, for me, it was about 9 months that I was addicted to it and hiding it. There's a little bottle called Feel Free that does anything but you feel free for the moment, but then similar to you, it was more so of managing the withdrawal more so than using it in a healthy way. And when I got off, I tapered off and then went to a friend's house in about a 3-week period, really aggressively withdrew. And it was, I mean, I had all the opioid withdrawals, the insomnia, the diarrhea, the cold sweats, the achy skin, and then
Yeah,
also the social side of things, like all of that. Right. And so I think you touched on something that was really, really important. And because I did the exact same thing, except a little bit different, where I had a tapering schedule and I had all this stuff in plan, but I didn't get the community. I didn't get connected to people when I was trying for like, there was about a 3-month period where I'm like, okay, here's my tapering schedule. I did not stick with it because my tapering would throw off my sleep. And then when I would throw off my sleep, then I knew I could just run to the gas station and get something that would feel better. And when I was more tired, it was easier to make the poor decision, all of that. But then what changed everything for me was community, was not doing it alone. And can you speak to that piece of it? The just the importance of not trying to confront this alone.
yeah. Again, this was it wasn't an in person thing. It was
Yeah.
social media,
Yeah.
um, and there was a bit of connection that I made with certain people individually, but mainly it was just a group thread where
Yeah.
people were sharing about their experience. They were offering support to other people. They were talking about supplements that they had used to maybe help with some of the withdrawals. It really was an educational piece. That was the piece that got me. I started to learn more about the kratom itself, and then
Yeah.
also what the impact that it has in people's worlds when you start to abuse it. Um, And I'm thinking if there was like an accountability piece. I feel like there was some sort of accountability piece.
Yeah.
I know every so often I would come in and say, hey, I'd give an update on where I was.
Okay.
You know, in this community, they called it the sludge. So I'd come
Okay.
in and say, 7 days free of the sludge. Um, so that was really helpful. Um, and then the piece that you reference is like just not feeling alone in this thing. Not feeling. I
Yeah.
think isolation is where shame can start to bind us, and so that piece of uh, seeing and hearing and being witness to other people that were in similar circumstances, or people that had been in that particular circumstances, or were trying to move through it in the way that I had up until that point. It was just
Yeah.
a collective way to feel supported and to not feel alone.
Yeah. What did you, after tapering off, and I know you said it was 18 months before you could really recalibrate, but what did you notice, even let's say over those 18 months or 6 months, really when you said, okay, that hard line in the sand is there and I am no longer going to be dependent on this? What did you notice it was suppressing emotionally, energetically, just in your how you see yourself? Because it suppresses pain, but it suppresses a lot more than that as well.
Yes. Connection. My desire for connection had been suppressed, uh,
Mm,
mainly with my wife. I can recall desiring to, uh, like, our we have it. We up until that point where I got like really heavy in the abuse, we'd had like an evening routine that helped us connect, whether it was just
okay.
sitting on the couch watching a movie, or talking about our day, or whatever, just a moment in time to connect. And then I remember not wanting that to happen, or finding
Okay.
reasons to not create space for that. Or like really like secretly hoping that she would go work out or do something, go for a walk or something else, so I could have my time, and do my routine. Where I actually started introducing alcohol into my use too, because I noticed that tinkered the feeling a bit.
Okay.
It's likely adding more sedation to it.
Yeah.
And so that was something too that was like came into a mix. So it was like the kratom, and then this like abuse of the alcohol, because I had paired them together. Um, but I would say connection, and I'm able to see this in hindsight. Um, but the things that like really made me feel alive, like being out in nature, just going to events, going to shows and concerts, or connecting with community, all the things that really gave me life, playing
Yeah.
instruments, reading, had that, like there was I none of that was in my life at this point.
Okay.
And I
Yeah. Yeah.
remember thinking at some point too, when I was on a crane, I was like, man, like I'm not, these things that were like life giving to me, they're like gone. They're like a distant memory. Um,
How'd you get them back?
it was a slow process. It was a very slow process. One of the things I do with the men that I support is we go through a first process called clearing the land, and it's really about plugging up energetic leaks,
Okay.
um, creating distance and space, and even in places just removing uh, uh, things that don't necessarily support our well-being and vitality and rejuvenation. And so, with this massive thing out of my life, that was my energy was leaking from it, and so with that out of my life, life force started to take shape within my vessel, and then
Yeah.
naturally through expression, I started to gravitate back to those things that like is just like a attraction and just vibrating on a different frequency, and I'm now resonating with all these things that were supporting the way that I was vibrating, prior to really getting, deep into the kratom use.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. How'd your wife navigate that? Like, those last 2 years where you were hiding and removing connection, I mean, did she pick up on that? Did she confront you at all? Like, what was her experience?
She didn't confront me. She didn't pick up on it.
Okay,
I'd shared with her that, hey, this is an addiction. I have an addiction to this thing now, and she offered support. She said, what do we need to do to help you here? And we had kind of
mm,
talked through that. Um, Interestingly enough, brother, is something that we still talk about is uh, I had a desire which I didn't express to her. Now that I'm sharing it, for more support, for more
okay,
confrontation, and so that's led us into a conversation around that. How much of that am I projecting onto her without having communicated with her? But yeah, I'd framed it to her in the ways like, you saw me going through this and struggling, and there was no confrontation. you,
yeah, yeah,
you did this right. You did this right. Fortunately, I feel like I have a level of awareness to shift that conversation into what was the unmet need that I desired in that moment.
okay,
So we don't get into the whole drama triangle cycle.
sure,
But it's very much alive in me still when to be like, oh, you didn't confront me. You didn't stop this. So
yeah. Yeah, I know for my wife, she has a history of a codependent tendency, and even with her ex, she was very codependent, and she said something really interesting after I came clean with her. She was like, "Well, I knew something was off. I couldn't necessarily pinpoint. I suspected it was this, but I was afraid to confront you. Like, that was actually a big fear of hers." And so in her, like, she does an amazing job of kind of owning her side of things, and she was sharing with me how there was almost an enabling side of things because of a deep-seated fear of me rejecting her or dismissing her, etc. But that fear caused a lack of confrontation, and which further enabled. Now, that is no way, shape, or form on her. I was the one that was doing it and hiding, etc. I just think that
right,
a lot of times women, especially those that we're intimate with or a partner, they're far more in tune to the distance than we may realize. But even that distance in and of itself, it's causing their own things to come up that may be hard for them to navigate. Does that make sense?
sure. Oh, 100%. Yeah, my wife has her own version of that. Is in that she was frozen in terms of how to support me, not because of the kratom use, but the other things that were going on in my life at that particular time, which I
Okay.
haven't shared up until this point with you. Is there were some massive, massive unfoldings in life events that were happening at this particular time. Um, One being, and kind of do it in chronological order,
Yeah.
that uh, the first one was that our son was born.
Yeah.
So my son was born. The second being that I had shut down a CrossFit gym that I'd ran for 13 years and was in this
Okay.
transition of creating this next chapter uh, for myself in terms of career. And then lastly, my mom had passed away, and
Mm,
uh, and she was dealing with an advanced form of cancer for
okay.
for for about a year or two. Um, and so my wife had shared with me, it's like, I'm recognizing all these things that are happening, and seeing how heavy and burdensome they were to me, and just being fearful of getting in the way of how I was navigating it all. Um,
Okay.
Even if it meant I'd carved out this time, because in her eyes it was right. I was hiding this thing, even if I had carved out this time in the night where I would have a couple glasses of wine.
Yeah.
And I don't think she knew as we're going through that I was using the kratom as much as I was.
Yeah.
So yeah, even just talking through this with you, it's really like even yeah, to hold her accountable for all that,
Sure.
realizing what she didn't know, it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially because I know for me, I can tell partial truths, right? So I would for a false sense of connection, I would share, yeah, I'm taking kratom, but I wouldn't be honest with the reality of it. I wouldn't come clean. Like this is the brutal truth. And
Sure.
so she couldn't respond to something that she doesn't know, right? So like she felt energetically, emotionally something was off, but she didn't know the reality of it because I wasn't in my shame, I wasn't willing to share the reality of it.
Right.
Sounds like you have an amazing wife like I do, where when I did come clean, it was like once I finally shared the reality of it, she actually, the day that I was like, I can't do this anymore. I have to tell her. I walk in the house, I'm crying in the car. I walk in the house and she comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, just want to check in. Are you like, how are you really?" And so she gave me the opportunity to come clean. And her response was, "Okay, I'm here with you. What do we got to do?" It was this, now I know, now let's link arms and get through this together. And I had the detox, I had cleanup, I had, all of that to do. I had to rebuild trust with her, understandably, but that I think that's like getting, not trying it alone, but also coming clean first and foremost with yourself. I don't know about you, but when I was hooked on it, I would lie to myself often to justify staying in that lower state.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Do you want to share? You want me to share the lies that I was
Yeah, yeah, please. I think a
sharing
lot of
with
people would
myself?
get something from it.
Um, the one, and I guess it's a nuanced truth, is that it's a plant.
Yeah.
It's this herbal plant. Uh,
Yep.
um, yeah, it's not this synthetic, lab made, uh,
It's not a
substance.
painkiller. It's not an opioid. It's a plant medicine.
Yeah, yeah, that was that piece. What was that? What else was I saying to myself? I'm sure there was some thread about it's. I don't really have an issue with it.
Yeah.
Some thread of that because like later on, right, it was really clear that it was causing some unwanted things in my world.
But
I
by
can
then the
stop when I
addiction,
want. Yeah.
yeah.
What'd you say?
Yeah. I was going to say by then, by the time that justification comes in, the addiction, the physical addiction, there's the emotional, energetic, all of that. But there's a physical addiction as well. So by the time you get to the I can stop whenever I want, if you're saying that to yourself and then you can't, there, then it's probably a used car salesman that's the cheesy type that's trying to press something on you that isn't necessarily the best for you.
Right, right, yeah. I also was saying that it's helping me be a better parent.
Yes. Speak to that.
And yeah, so I realized that I had more. I don't even want to call it patience. In my mind, it was patience, but what it truly was I just wasn't feeling.
Yeah.
So it was patience because there was like disconnection.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. You
but
were
but
emotionally
in
disassociated from the situation, so you weren't as
right,
reactionary.
yeah, yes. But that was a lie to me. It's like, man, I could be with anything. Like, oh shit, man, my son throwing stuff across the room, breaking windows. I'm just like, I'm so chill about it, you know. Um,
Yeah. Yep.
so, Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. You actually just touched on something I'd love to dig a little deeper on, which is the conversation around plant medicine. Broader than kratom, but I mean that's readily available, legal in I think 48 states. And but this, let's call it a lie that a lot of men tell themselves, that using plant medicine. Now, if you've listened to my episodes, you know that psychedelics helped me rewire and heal my mind and put me on the path that has me where I am today, so I'll always be grateful. But there's a lot of men that abuse quote unquote plant medicine, be it kratom or any of this kind of new renaissance that's happening. And they're either chasing a new high, a new insight, the verbiage of expanding your consciousness, all of that. I, why do you think men lie to themselves to convince themselves that plant medicine is quote unquote good, which there are good aspects about it, but really what they're doing is they're either numbing, hiding, checking out. They're not being present with themselves or their loved ones. They're chasing this deepening of consciousness or whatever it may be, or being a better parent. They're lying to themselves, using plant medicine as the justification to continue to engage in something that ultimately isn't what they want.
Why do I think men do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this is specific to men. I think in general, people are, there's something about getting a new insight,
Yeah.
getting a new level of awareness, getting an aha moment, uh, that satiate this desire of us to feel like we landed upon something. And what I've seen in my space, and even with myself, is because that's not the thing that is, it's not all of the thing that is necessary for transformation. That
Yeah.
happens through integration, application, uh, to really making it yours, embodiment, and that
Yeah.
that that takes time and effort, intentionality, and most people don't have the systems in place after these ceremonies to be in this integration process. And so what inevitably happens is that they go, oh, let me go chase that thing again to get that satiation.
Yeah.
I've heard the term spiritual bypassing. I'm not sure
Yeah.
exactly what that means, but that's kind of what I think. That's kind of what I
I
think
call
about when
it
I hear that term.
I call it spiritual masturbation because it's not authentic
Yeah,
pleasure.
yeah,
But like,
yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Why do you think men, do that?
well, I think that you hit on a major thing. Um, I think we're really good at lying and convincing ourselves to justify wearing a certain mask that society expects us to wear as men, instead of being willing to authentically look at the reality of where we're at and where we're not.
Mm.
And I mean, what I'll often ask men is, that maybe have fallen into this, is how's that working out for you? Right. And normally, not always, but normally they're talking to me about their challenges, or they're still feeling anxiety, or they just broke up with the girlfriend, and so they're not really grounded. They're not really happy. They're really good at sharing this revelatory experience, or this ayahuasca journey, or this whatever it may be, or this kratom that's helping them stay focused because there's the uppers and the downers, or sleep better. Like they're justifying using something as essentially a escape hatch for them looking at themselves with brutal honesty.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. what's coming up for me when you share that, and this is in my own, I've heard it somewhere. It's this idea that if a tree isn't bearing the fruit uh, that it's intended to bear, that changing out the leaves or painting the leaves on the tree will have very little impact on changing the fruit
Yeah.
or the lack of fruit that it's not yielding. It's when
Yeah.
you go to the soil and dig in there and get that nourished and create the
Yeah.
right environment through that piece, which is a little more challenging. It takes a little more time. You talked about, it goes beyond the mask, right? That's when it's
Yeah.
like, oh shit, mask off. Let's go in here. Let's see what's
Yeah.
here. So we can cultivate the environment that can bring about the fruit that I want to bring forth in the world.
How do, let's say somebody's listening to this and they're being challenged by the conversation, regardless of what they may or may not be using, or maybe even not even using anything, but they're a tree with painted leaves. What are some things that you have either helped men do and work with, or practices that you're aware of or that even helped you tend to the soil?
So I have a process, and I use that term loosely because oftentimes when I get into coaching dynamics, the process just it's like in
It's
real
fluid.
time. It's like exactly. Um, but but our first step is, and my program's called the Rooted Man. So it's interesting that
Okay.
we're having this conversation. But the first step is clearing the land, and I talked about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Um, the let's just glance at our world and see what is in our space that we get to clear out. What are we exposing ourselves to that is an energetic drain, that is in our soil, in our environment, that we don't want there because it doesn't help us bring about our desired result.
Yeah.
And some of these things aren't, it's not as easy as just, taken apart, but bringing in awareness first kind of helps. And some things are pretty easy to shift from. But I've heard this from Preston, when he says, we can't intervene in a world we can't see,
Yeah.
and awareness precedes, choice and change. But clearing the land is the first step in my process. And the second one is tilling the soil. This is really about inviting into our space things that are life giving, things that help us work in. I think about nutrition, diet, rest. Um, we think about things that bring us happiness, and inviting more of those things into our world. So we're starting to massage and nourish the soil, if you will, that internal environment. Um, After that, we have plant the seeds. This is about getting clearly about what it is you desire in life. What is your dream? What is your mission? What is your calling? Start to learn about those things. And what are your values? What are your personal code of ethics? Um, and then we move into a process that's called water the crops. Okay. You learned a little bit about, or we learned a little bit about this in Bridge, with aligned committed actions. Okay. What are the
Yeah.
actions and behaviors that support what we're finding out, as far as our calling and mission and our values and our dreams. Um, and then lastly, we have a harvest, because what I think is true is that none of it all matters. But I think to complete the cycle is it doesn't belong to us. I believe there is something trying to move through us. And you think about the four levels of consciousness. It's to me, by me, through me, and as me. And it's like we start to
Yeah.
realize that, whoa, something's operating through me because there's something that wants to be shared. And I get to clean my vessel so that messaging, that energy gets to move through me uninterrupted, unfiltered, without stagnation. And so part of the harvest part is like, how's that want to be shared?
Yeah. I think you just touched on a massive thing, especially for people that are in the beginning of that. And I love how you articulated that, because I think that that really puts words to the process. That you said it yourself. It's harder. It takes more time. It's not easy, right? But and again, please hear me if you're listening. It does not mean that there's not value in plant medicine or in these other things. It's when you find yourself using them to running with the metaphor, paint the leaves instead of till the soil or manage the soil to produce the fruit. But the thing that you touched on is, because I've been guilty of this, where it's why I think that a lot of New Year's resolutions don't actually last. One, because you're not working with the root of things, but two, it's I'm no longer going to do X, Y, or Z. I'm going to remove these things that are no longer serving me, and I'm essentially going to white knuckle and just hold on and see if it'll make me a better person. But and my brother even challenged me at one point. This was a couple years ago. Of I was wanting to challenge myself, and so I forget what exactly I was committing to. But he's like, "Okay, well, what are you going to replace that with? Like, what? Okay, great. You're removing something that you don't want. What are you going to add? You're going to eat less sugar. Okay, then now what are you going to do in place of it when you crave
Right.
that, or when you want that, or and that, I think that's just such an important missing piece for so many people, to exchange what you don't want for what you want, be it in action, in food, in spirituality, whatever it may be, because then you start to, over time, tilling that soil, you build momentum in the direction you want to go. You don't just avoid and fight the direction you don't want to go.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I like that.
So if you're listening to this and you're challenged by it, I think it's really important. You're like, oh man, you know what? After this conversation, I realized I need to come clean on Kratom. Let's just use that since we were talking about it. Okay, you want to remove that from your life, but what are you going to be adding? For me, it was community. I did a detox. Like I'm still to this day have a tendency of lone wolfing, of isolating, of avoiding. That's still an unhealthy go-to that I find temporary comfort in. And I'm telling you right now, it was one of the hardest things for me to do. We have a group chat of everybody that attended the Bridge and Extreme with Preston and Alexi. And it was, I had attended this and I was still even struggling with it when I was attending. And to do a video, it was whatever, a 2-minute video of, hey guys, this is what I'm struggling with. I need your help. And I felt so much shame. I would not have recorded that video had I not had another friend challenge and encourage me to do so. And even when I did, I sat in my car for 10 minutes before I hit record. But that led to the community. I mean, that led to this conversation. That led to the community coming around me and me detoxing at a friend's house. That led to so many other things that I had used the justification of I'm going to do it on my own, right? But I was wanting to remove Kratom, but I wasn't adding the thing I really needed, which was connection.
Yeah, that sounds like a way to like anchor yourself into the process of shifts, of transformation. It's like
Yeah.
it's like taking it another step.
Yeah. How do men self-regulate and stay anchored when the thing they're facing feels almost overwhelming in the moment?
I think the first piece is being aware of what parts of ourselves, what are desiring the the behavior that's being desiring the behavior that's coming through us. For instance, I was coaching a guy earlier, and I won't share specifics, but he shared with me that he's creating space between this part of himself that's desiring just real easy, temporal, instant gratification. And he gave three aspects of himself that he shared. One of them, I forget the other one, but one of them was this like this this higher self, if you will,
Yeah.
that was driving into his vessel what he ultimately wanted. And that behavior was completely different from this. And so what I think is having the tools that help men become less reactionary and more responsive. I love that word responsibility broken into two, which
Yeah.
is literally responsibility, your ability to respond. It's almost like, is the thing choosing you or are you choosing it? And when we're in that place of choice, when we have that space, we get to practice trying to be in integrity with our highest self. I hate kind of using these high low things because it kind of
Sure.
presents like a hierarchy, which can
How
then
about
invite.
true self? Your true
Yeah,
self, your
there you
authentic
go.
self.
Yeah. There you go. That fits better. And then that's the game is to make choices that align with the true self and to have compassion when we don't always do that.
Yeah.
In these other aspects, at some point too, what I shared with him is that it's like they all have a seat at a round table, and what may have been happening for this gentleman, and I know it's surely happened for me, is that all these aspects and psyches and inner child versions of myself would just run to the head of the table. This is what we're doing. Next one would run at the head of the table, and it's like what I see happening here is like this integrated, mature, embodied aspect of me is at the seat of the table, and now choosing, where to now choosing who gets to have a seat at the table, or it
Yeah.
should be happy folk bringing our attention and intention to all these different aspects in a way that helps us feel the line to the true self.
Yeah. Yeah. How do if a man is realizing just in general, you know what? I'm a dude with a short fuse. I just am. And doesn't realize it's that inner child or those different aspects that are kind of running the show. How do they, and I know this could probably be an entire podcast series in and of itself, but what are some really practical tools that you've used or help others use, high level, that help transition from the reactionary to the responsive?
Uh, so I think nervous system and sympathetic and parasympathetic people that run hot like that
Yeah.
typically are in the sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight, flight, response. And so bringing in practices for them to help create more balance within the nervous system. So that would be, my where I start is digestion. Just cleaning up their digestive system. Then I go into sleep and nutrition. These are going to be more what we call yin principles, slowing things down, inviting more stillness into their world, being more intentional with their breath. A lot of this is meeting the person too with where they are. It's as I'm
Yeah.
sharing all this, what's coming in is like, yeah, these are all great. And you talked about it when someone stretches too much and tries to white knuckle something, it's like they're likely, it's hard to keep up. It's hard to
Setting
keep
themselves
up.
up
And
for
what
failure.
happens is you swing that pendulum all the way back, and
Yeah.
like you're probably in like a more fortified place than when you started,
Yeah.
because of that rebound effect. But yeah, it's learning where they're at, and then giving them, meeting them where they're at, and inviting more aspects that align with more yin principles, which are more slowing down, um, more parasympathetic nervous system regulation techniques. But that's where I would start.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite exercises that I give to clients that normally tends to spiral out more men than women, but also some women, is to literally find somewhere, a park bench, wherever, and sit for 5 minutes with yourself. Put your hand on your heart and just say, I give you permission to be fully present. And then, like, literally do nothing. Don't pick up your phone. Don't pray. Don't journal. Don't read a book. Just sit with yourself. And more times than not, that there's so much that has been suppressed for so long that just comes rushing to the surface, because ultimately we're longing to be seen in that way. But then when we are the ones that are blocking ourselves from feeling and from being and from slowing down, forcing yourself to do that, even just for 5 minutes, can be really challenging at first. Eventually, I don't know, but I assume you, but like, you look forward to it,
Yeah.
because learning that to expand your capacity and be able to do more, you have to learn how to slow down in the midst of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that in general men view that slowing down, stillness as something that's not effective, or that's not helpful or supportive for
Oh, I've
them?
struggled with it. I've struggled with it with I mean, my wife is more of the, "Oh, I love the slower mornings," and etcetera. And I'm a former Marine, so I can be more militant with myself, and have had to learn how to soften to myself by slowing down. But I mean, she notoriously, lovingly gives me a hard time, because when I'm sick, I'm like, all right, I literally say, I'm sending in the troops, as in vitamin C and, elderberry. And I'm just going to take a bunch of stuff and we're going to kick this sickness's ass and we're just going to keep going. She's like, do you need to take a nap? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So I mean, I still fight that propensity to just push through. And I think there's value in that. And I think
Sure.
in our society, we've gotten softer, and there is growth in discomfort. And it's not a pendulum swing from one extreme to another in that sense. But from finding peace and finding yourself and regulating your system, all of that, I think there is extreme value and need to do exactly what you just said, which is slow down.
Yeah. Uh, I'm reminded of the yin yang symbol, and
Yeah.
it's the each aspect has a component of the other, and it's not like it's not a rigid line across. It's a fluid, because it's a dance.
Yeah.
It really is a dance. And yeah, I personally believe that each person has what I would describe as a core. And like, for instance, there's people that have that desire, like a masculine core or like a feminine core. Um, but with that being said, I do believe that there's this dance that gets to happen through go and rest,
Yeah.
movement, stillness.
Yeah.
We see it in nature,
Yeah.
and we are part of nature. We are nature. We're so the macro influences the micro. You find the macro in the micro, and it's like, oh yeah, we're doing that same thing in our own way.
Yeah.
And so tuning into that piece that's where it's at. So that's where it's been for me and the men that I support.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think men, it's not to say that men um don't have the ability to do that as easily, but I think that women that are in tune, like my wife, she's very into cycle syncing. and and so there's a time of the month where it's kind of pull back and slow down,
Yeah,
and then there's a time of the month where it's like game on, we're going. And so she has learned and teaches women how to do that dance and ebb and flow, where for us
sure.
men it has to be something that is a very intentional, I'm going to stop or I'm going to slow down so that I can go faster or go more or go
Yeah,
bigger.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I mean, from my understanding, women are naturally more intuitive. And
Yeah.
so, being that they're more intuitive to existence, that natural rhythm and wisdom that comes with seasons and cycles is probably more available to them than guys who are more analytical. It's like, no,
Sure.
I'm trying to get here. Why the hell would I slow down? Like, the object is to get here, go
Yeah.
there, go now. Like, get there as quick as possible, get there as efficient as possible. That's the objective there, the destination.
Yeah. Yeah. What's one like daily or regular habit that you've learned to integrate into your life that's helped you slow down?
Currently, breath work. And
Okay.
about 2 weeks ago, I'm trying to think of the app. Here it is. Oxygen Advantage. It's been really helpful. Um,
Okay.
so it has 5 times throughout the day. It guides me through breath work, and they're anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
That has been like super helpful for me. Number one, it creates, just by having deliberate time where it's like, oh, I get to stop and be still.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a big piece. And, the health benefits of breathing deeply,
Yeah.
slowing down the breath, offers that regulation that I was speaking about earlier, where it's like, oh, you get to kind of, regulate the nervous system in a way where you invite more of parasympathetic response to take place, which helps with
Yeah.
digestion and restoration. It sends out like a anabolic response in the body that creates restoration, repair, all those types of hormones.
Yeah.
So that's been really helpful. Um, I love the walks that I do. We have a dog, and I take them for walks in the morning and in the evenings.
Okay.
And yeah, that gives me space to be outside.
Yeah.
In the mornings, it's really still in our community, and depending on what season we're in, it's dark. But just feeling into that stillness, I think is really helpful. I really think there's a different charge in the environment when we're outside of all these electronics and things. That's
Yeah.
really really helpful for healing, and it's just allowing us to kind of sinking down to more of a still, slower space.
Yeah.
So the walks. Um,
Well, and you just
hmm,
hit on something that I think is really good, which is for a man who is a driven go-getter, whatever you want to call it, that's go, 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 and maybe is rationalizing or justifying, yeah, I hear what you're talking about, but I'm not going to become a yogi that sits on top of a mountain for 2 hours a day, etc. With that app, what was it called? Oxygen Advantage.
yeah,
5 minutes. You mean to tell me that in your busy schedule, you don't take a shit for 5 minutes and play on your phone 5 minutes longer than you're supposed to, or you don't ever waste 5 or 10 minutes throughout your day? Even just taking that little bit of time, it can be a jump off point for you to begin to look deeper and to slow down. And so it's not a complete lifestyle change. It may lead to that. That's not the end all be
right,
all goal, but to say that you don't have time, if you're giving yourself that justification, you may be the very person that actually needs to slow down. And instead of it being this overwhelming big task, okay, download Oxygen Advantage and take 5 minutes twice a day to slow down and breathe and just see what happens, see where it takes you.
yeah. I'm reminded of a quote, and I don't know who shared it, but the quote is, "All of man's problems are a result of his inability to sit in a dark room alone for a period of time."
Okay. Yeah.
And right, yeah, as I'm sharing that, right, at first, immediately, like, using the word "all," it's like, oh, red flag, red flag.
Sure.
I really try and talk in absolutes, um, but yeah, I think, and then there was another quote that said, "We don't allow ourselves to be bored."
Yes.
And bored is there's so many ways for us to distract ourselves, to get a quick dopamine hit,
Yep.
to entertain ourselves. There's so many outlets for that. You pull up to a stop sign, a stoplight, or a red light. You can grab this phone and for 30 seconds get a quick little dopamine hit that feels
Yeah.
good. There's just a lot of ways for us to do that, and we get to ask ourselves, like for the man that you're talking to, it's like, at what cost?
Yeah.
You asked the question earlier and you said, how's that working out for you? And that's what we always get to circle back to, is like, how does it support you and what you're desiring to create? Okay, well,
Yeah.
I work, I go. I don't get adequate sleep, and then I wake up and I've got to drink 4 or 5 cups a morning to go through the day. Now I'm revved up. I'm easily triggered. I don't feel present with my family. Um, my adrenal glands are just
Shot.
taxed.
Yeah.
My internal state is not at ease. And when it's not at ease, we give space for dis-ease. So it's just like, what at cost? So a lot of it is just helping men understand like what this is creating for them
Yeah.
that they may not be able to see, or what it's leading towards. And then with
Yeah.
compassion and grace, it's like, hey, okay, that's not what we're desiring. And so then now what do we get to do, and how what support can we set up so that we can shift into this new behavior?
Yeah. Yeah. If there's a man listening now, and let's say that he's like, yep, everything you just said I'm doing, or even one of those things, just beginning to realize that, or maybe a different way of saying it is that he feels like something's missing but can't pinpoint what it is. What would you say would be the first step in unpacking or looking into that?
The thing that's missing, like helping a man get clarity about that.
Yeah, if there's something more, I'm unhappy, or I'm grabbing my phone 10 times a day and can't live without it. Like I feel myself smaller than I can be, but I don't really know that first step to take. What would you suggest that be?
Yeah.
Besides meet with you.
This the Yeah, the what's coming through me now is just an invitation for more stillness. And
Yeah.
I know it sounds like your question is more about it's less about like a technique. Is that what I'm hearing? It's less about like a
Yes,
technique.
however you're hearing it. Yeah.
Um, I believe that when we slow down, when we get stillness, it grants us access to internal wisdom. And we can call that intuition.
Yeah.
And we can start to hear that and get clarity around not just the things that we've been conditioned to think with the logical mind, not just the ideas around what success and fulfillment means that have been imparted onto us by our culture, society, our family, but instead, you talked about, I love that term, higher truth. It's like we get to gain access to this truth about what success looks like for us, what fulfillment looks like for us, what's our unique calling and mission. And through that clarity, then we have a why. We're anchored into a why.
Yeah.
And through there we can start to build the support mechanisms to help us move into our whatever we're unraveling through this, this connection to that internal wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, JeVon, I've loved our conversation. I feel like we could go for another 3 hours without an issue, but I try to keep them around an hour just so that it's my threshold as far as my pace or my timing, but I always love to end with two things. One is one massive, massive billboard and 1 billion people see it. What do you put on it?
You are the thing you are looking for.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said, my friend. And lastly is just how can people connect with you? Let's say you work with mostly men, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So if a guy's listening and he's like, man, you just read my mail. All this stuff. I need to go further. I don't know what that first step is. Okay, great. That sounds nice. Slow down, but I need help. And or they just want to learn more about what you have to offer. Where can people find you? How can they connect with you?
Website, therootedman.com.
Okay.
And I'm on Instagram, and it's JeVon _Ikner.
Okay.
Those would be the two platforms to get an idea of what I do and how I support people, and also stay tapped into my content.
Okay.
And then even those, you can reach out to me through those platforms as well.
Perfect. And obviously we'll put those links in the show notes as well. So don't worry about trying to spell everything right, etc. Just check out the show notes. And JeVon, thanks. I know you'll be back. We'll dive into some more topics. I appreciate your honesty and transparency when it comes to the Kratom conversation. And I know that myself, as well as a lot of other people, are going to glean a lot from this conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, brother, for having me on, man. It was good to connect with you in this way.
Likewise. All right.